Hi there, my name is Nina Goradia. I'm a Somatic Experiencing practitioner, which means I work with people who have PTSD, and I've spent over 10 years reading sympathetic and parasympathetic body cues. So body cues signifying if someone is in the fight or flight response or stressed. And I've spent the last 3 days processing my horror and disgust at the Dalai Lama incident with the little boy. And I have never made a reaction video before, but in this case, I can't not speak. So with my background and reading these body cues, it was apparent to me that there were several boundary violations. And I'm going to read my response to somebody where I, speak about each one of these in detail. And then I'm not going to play the video here. I've watched the video so many times now, and I'm sure you have as well. You could find that anywhere. But I'm going to show you what things I saw, and you can look for those if you find a video. Before I go there, I want to link a video here of a Tibetan man who is confirming that this is not Tibetan culture, to ask somebody to suck on their tongue. And I'm really grateful for that video because there are many people saying that this is Tibetan culture, whereas it seems to be that it's just the sticking out the tongue as a greeting. And maybe it could be said that that was a joke, like an uncle, like pull my finger joke. But what I saw was that it was said in a demanding, authoritative tone. And there was the long pause, and his tongue, the Dalai Lama's tongue, was positioned into place. And then there's just silence and a pause, waiting to see what the boy would do. That doesn't seem like a joke to me, because the boy, had he been more confused, he could have done it. How is that a joke? And so there have been plenty of videos already made assessing the Dalai Lama's intentions. I'm not going to speak about that. I don't I don't condone what he did, and I don't think it's appropriate whatsoever, but the focus of this video is going to be on the boy and the impact. There's, with every incident, there's intention and there's impact. And you can speculate as to the Dalai Lama's intentions all day long, but don't we all have a responsibility to not impact children in negative ways and violate their boundaries? Do we have a responsibility to not be saying these things are okay? Because that's grooming children and teaching them that that's okay. In fact, it's grooming all of us into thinking that it's okay. It's grooming the adults into thinking that this is okay. When people say, no, it was just his culture and it doesn't mean anything and that's okay. And even the apology that was issued by the Dalai Lama's organization was minimizing and gaslighting, only taking responsibility for his words and not his actions. And it was also just trying to reframe in a way that kind of tells people to not trust their own instincts. The first time and every time I've seen that video, I've had such a cringe reaction. It's like gut-wrenching. And I'm going to trust that, and I hope you trust yours too. I'm going to trust my direct experience, not any programming that is trying to tell me that's culture, that's okay. Again, the Tibetan man's video, which I have linked, and I will also put in the description box, confirms from an insider's point of view that it's not Tibetan culture. But even if it were, is it okay to have a culture where a child is put in such a vulnerable, scary, confusing situation? Is that okay? Or can we say, hey, maybe there's something we need to reevaluate here? Even if this is something from the 9th century where people would stick their tongue out, and we're in the 21st century now. And it's fine if people still stick their tongue out, that's not hurting anyone. But to stick your tongue out and ask a boy to suck it and to wait for him to see what he's going to do, it's highly inappropriate. It's criminal. If anyone else did this on the street, they would be arrested. I'm going to link here as well a video by Laura Richards, who is a criminal behavioral analyst, who has done just the most brilliant, intelligent, analysis on this that I've seen in the last 3 days. I really, really encourage you to watch that video. She breaks it down in such a professional way that really highlights the gaps in thinking that I'm seeing around this subject. So now I'm going to read a response that I wrote to someone who said that this is part of Tibetan culture. This person is not Tibetan, but they were under this misperception based on all the people who are using this argument to condone this action, which did not respect the boy's boundaries or his request, which was simply for an innocent hug. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner who works with victims of abuse daily. I am trained in reading body cues of sympathetic and parasympathetic activation. It is clear that the child was uncomfortable and pulled away many times. The Dalai Lama didn't let go of his hand and kept pulling him closer. The child tried to distance himself multiple times by looking upwards and looking away to the side. There was zero empathy or emotional attunement from the Dalai Lama for the child. I will not rationalize this away. The Indian boy is not going to be aware of this aspect of their culture, and regardless, why should it be imposed on him? The Dalai Lama was in the position of power, and he has the responsibility with this power, but he behaved without any regard for the child's comfort or feelings. And people around the world are understandably outraged because most of us felt cringe and disgust on a gut level. Even if there was no intent of abuse, there has been considerable impact on this boy and the world. What if the boy had reciprocated out of feeling pressured? The Dalai Lama put his tongue in place, would not let go of the child's hand, despite the child pulling away, and just waited for a long pause until the child stuck out his tongue in confusion. If anyone else had done this, they would be arrested. If there was no intent, is this behavior being normalized for others to follow suit in grooming children? If he can get away with it, can others too? Is it okay just because it's his culture for this child to almost feel pressured into actually sucking his tongue because the child doesn't know better? If the child was aware it was cultural and was familiar with what this phrase actually is said to mean, he would have laughed instead of feeling pressured to almost do it. It was even said in an authoritative, demanding tone and no laughing in the moment. The Dalai Lama also kissed him on the lips by pulling him towards the child. The child didn't want it and had only asked for a hug. The Dalai Lama is well-traveled and should understand how the world would see this gesture. And being Indian, I can say this is definitely not culturally appropriate in India, where the Dalai Lama has lived for so long. He should know better. I'll always be on the side of the child in situations like this and take a strong anti-abuse stance. The Dalai Lama's apology was minimizing and gaslighting to the child, and it only took responsibility for half of what occurred, his words, and no responsibility at all taken for his actions or the impact. So instead of people saying that, because I've seen comments like this, instead of people saying that, oh, the child is so lucky that he got to have that closeness with the Dalai Lama, there are people actually saying this. Why aren't people asking, what did the child ask for? What were the child's boundaries? What was the child's reactions to what happened? Look at the child's body cues. It's really obvious. And yes, I did see the video that came out afterwards of the child and his mother saying that it was a good experience. But what I can say about that sweet boy, you know, he's so good-natured, and people are going to interpret things from that place of their own good nature. So he said it was very positive, experienced positive energy, but I wonder if that is what got projected onto the Dalai Lama from this sweet, innocent young boy, who is the one with the good energy and the one who's so positive. Of course, it's up to each individual's body's reaction and mental perception of what trauma is, but a child doesn't have words to explain what happened here. A child doesn't understand how adults interact and can groom children. A child doesn't know these things. A child is completely innocent. And so many people who experienced abuse as children only figure it out later. Hey, that wasn't appropriate. That wasn't right. I guess I did feel something was off, but I rationalized it away. And you can see by his body reactions, he pulled away many times. Not just once, even once is enough. Once is fine. And we as adults should be attuned to children's body cues because they can't verbalize all these things. They're still learning, they're still developing and growing. We need to be attuned to their body cues and not overstep their boundaries. I'd also like to offer, if the boy's family is watching this, and if you want to go the route of somatic experiencing to physically clear the trauma through different emotional clearing exercises, we could do that online. There'd be no charge. It would be an honor to support this boy and the family. And even if this boy sees this video 10 or 20 years from now, and you would like to do that, the offer stands just indefinitely. Feel free to reach out to me. And of course, like all of my clients, 100% confidentiality. And so I hope that we all recognize that we as adults have the responsibility to speak out against this, because the children can't. And any of you who are saying this is okay and rationalizing away this behavior, you're part of the problem. You are supporting a culture, and now a global culture, which is normalizing, allowing children to feel so uncomfortable, unprotected, and unseen in their body cues, their boundaries that they have, and they're being violated, disrespected, and trained to override their own gut reactions, trained that when they say no, it's not okay. And when they say no with their body, that it's not okay. And so we all have the responsibility to not think this is normal and to speak out against it so that we can protect children. I'm hoping this video does not add further to the trauma of this boy and his family. And for that reason, I'm also not going to approve comments that are rationalizing the grooming behavior that was displayed. And I'm always on the child's side. I'm always against abuse, and I stand for that. Feel free to comment below if you want to support this responsibility we all have for speaking out. Please do your part. If we don't speak out, this stuff gets normalized. Please do your part where you are